Tao teacher, Zen Master Seung Sahn, created this idea of the Zen Circle as a teaching mnemonic. Now, circles are used all the time in Zen because of their particular qualities. The first thing you're going to notice about the Zen Circle is it's split in half. There's a big, tall, vertical line. Maybe you're noticing that first. This is a symbol of the Buddha's teaching of the two truths. There's a sutra, a very early sutra. The Buddha taught two truths. One is a truth that's constantly changing. This is the law of impermanence. And now I've had people say to me, well, if it changes, it's not true, is it? And to a degree, they're right. It's true only for the moment. So, like, I might be eating an ice cream cone and I'm enjoying it. That's true. But when I finish the ice cream cone, it's no longer true. It's now in the past. I might get a toothache. The toothache is true. Eventually, if I'm lucky, it gets taken care of. I'm not in pain any longer. So that pain is no longer true. This is the life all of us live in. We're in a world of constantly changing name and form. If we like what's going on, we're okay. If we don't like what's going on, we start to suffer. So even if we see into our thinking, let's say I see into my thinking about the toothache and I don't make it worse, I still have a toothache. That no amount of meditation, enlightenment doesn't take away the toothache. What it does, it makes us 100% present to the toothache, and then we discover the function of the toothache and our relationship to it. So this the right-hand side of the circle as you're looking at the drawing is opposites world or relative world or conditioned truth. Those are all different names for the same truth that the Buddha is teaching. Things change. The other side is absolute world, or also absolute truth, or your Buddha nature, my Buddha nature. This is the component of our experience that never changes, ever. And it's completely still. And it's always there. When I was a kid, I was taught in Catholic school, or first grade, I had a soul. And that soul could get dirty if I sinned. And then if I went to confession, the soul got clean. And then if I sinned again, it would get dirty again. I was completely convinced I had a soul. And I had this sense, and all of you have it as well, that something has not changed your entire life. Now, you can make it dirty or you can make it clean is a Catholic teaching. Buddhist teaching is it's perfect, perfectly whole, cannot be damaged, hindered, changed. It is a perfect sphere is how it's usually poetically described. And completely clear. And could you hear that? Could you see this? That's your true nature, perception, awareness. So in the Zen Circle, that's everything on the left side. Now I'll bring your attention to the bottom of the circle. There's a 0 inside, and there's a 360-degree mark at the bottom on the outside. So 0 degrees is where I'll start on this talk. You'll notice that 0 degrees and 360 are the same point. The only difference is how our minds are. What the architecture of our mind is doing, maybe we know, maybe we don't know. So on the inside of the circle it says the common dust, attachment to name and form, karma I or small I. So a karma I is a mind completely controlled by its attachment to name and form. That can be something quite, not good or bad. You know, we're attached to karma. Sometimes it's a good situation and we're following it. Sometimes it's a bad situation and we're following it. So the attachment will lead to suffering if it becomes too strong. So I'll use the toothache analogy again. My karma is to have this toothache. Now what do? Do I just avoid it? Do I not want to think about old age, sickness, and death? Do I just hope it'll go away? If I'm attached to it, I don't think so clearly. If the toothache is controlling me, I'm complaining, why is this happening to me? So this experience is controlling my mind. But if I'm in truth world, at 360 degrees, oh, I have a toothache. What should I do? So call up the dentist. Oh, I have to drive, I have to make an appointment. But just do it. Just do it step by step. So that's the difference. The karma I or small I controls us. In the truth world, we have thinking, but it's non-attachment thinking. Also, say you have a panic attack. I had a friend once who was watching television and started having a panic attack and had never had one. And symptoms got really extreme and he called the paramedics and they showed up and they took his vitals and they said, oh, you're having a panic attack. And he said, I wasn't worried about anything. I was watching television. And they said, well, that might be, but you're having a panic attack. We could take you to the hospital, it won't make any difference. If you do this deep breathing, this, it'll go away. So his body, his panic, some part of his mind was controlling him, and his thinking mind, which on the circle is 90 degrees, the thinking I, existence, attachment to thinking and thinking I, his thinking I is going, I'm not having a panic attack. But his whole body was having a panic attack. So there can even be a disconnect between what we're thinking, all of you are thinking now as you're listening to the talk, I'm thinking as I'm giving it, and our actual experience. There's that possibility. We move up the circle going on the right in the conditioned world. 90 degrees to 180 is where most of us spend our conscious waking lives. And if we're not practicing, we think our thoughts are real, we think our thoughts are us, we think our thoughts won't change, and then when they do change, we don't even notice they've changed. So we call this the thinking I, and the Heart Sutra refers to this. The Heart Sutra uses thinking. It says, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. That's a complete thinking instruction. Now, it might give us a big question, what the fuck does that mean? But it's a thinking instruction. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. We're using thinking to try to understand the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha's using thinking to try and teach us, but it's not the whole story. It's not including the whole truth. So we move on up the circle to 180 degrees, and this is where things get interesting. This is called the absolute world, and another name for this is first enlightenment. And this can be something we experience naturally, without any effort. It can be something that appears out of meditation. It can be something that appears if we get extraordinarily bad news. It can be something that appears if we get extraordinarily good news. Our thinking comes to a standstill. We are dumbstruck. Sometimes nature will do this. Maybe if you visited Yosemite or you saw an extraordinarily beautiful sunset. everything just stops. If you're really paying attention and all that thinking stops, then you have an observer. And if you're really relaxed, the idea of the observer stops. So then you and the sunset are not separate. You and Yosemite Valley and Bridalveil Falls, not separate. That's first enlightenment, and it's the direct experience of our absolute nature. And our thinking has just fallen to the back. No one can stay there, but everyone can arrive there and see into your mind before thinking. Your mind before thinking, my mind before thinking are the same substance as the sky, the floor, cat, dog, car, everything. All the same substance. That's before thinking. After thinking, all our minds are different. I've had different trauma, different age, different experiences, all these different conditions. So at this point, whether you arrive there from meditating or you arrive there from giving birth to a child or you arrive there from learning you have a cancer diagnosis, it has two conditions. When it faces the conditioned world, it's without like this. So it's without all those conditions. And there's this experience of complete stillness. Facing the other way, on the drawing it's to the left, it's become one like this. And that is always action. So when the stick hits the floor, that's a demonstration of the absolute. The stick hits the floor, the vibrations come into my ear, they go into your ear. There's no physical separation. They go into the microphone, into the people listening on Zoom. Up to the satellite, back down from the satellite. Everything's connected. Everyone hears that. Everyone sees this. So that's become one like this. Now, if I'm thinking, my thinking covers that up and I can't see it. But if I let my thinking go or put my thinking in the back, then this is very simple. We call that first enlightenment. In Soto tradition, Kensho, if you're meditating and your thinking completely stops and you see the floor, time and space disappear, name and form disappear, cause and effect disappear. So at that time, at that moment, your mind is not making any of those things. And it's just become completely still. It's clear, like a mirror. It's clear and void, like space. And it reflects. If red comes, it just reflects red. If white comes, it just reflects white. No thinking's involved. Just reflect, reflect. Live, non-attached thinking could be involved, but no attached thinking is involved. Because the nature of the absolute, in the Heart Sutra, it says the mind does not hinder it. So we have this quality. It was here before we were born. It doesn't disappear when we die. It's outside. It's before the concept of life. It's before the concept of death. Because it's the absolute rather than some conditioned thing. So if we come around the circle going to the left, there's 270 degrees. This is the realm of what we call freedom I. And you might hear about esoteric practices where Taoist teachers make things float or can see through a wall and know what's going on outside. There's extreme kind of dramatic examples of that where they cultivate a special universal energy. What they're doing is they're arriving at 180, training themselves to keep their thinking out of the way. tapping into universal energy, and then using that energy to change time and space. If they want life, they can get life. If they want death, they can get death. If they want life to come back, they can get life to come back. That sounds kind of crazy. But the less extreme forms of 270 in this part of our consciousness and our capacity is a faith healer. A person who is a faith healer is using universal energy to heal the person that is sick. A sample of this is when a mom and dad with a newborn are sound asleep in their bed, and the newborn makes a negative sound. They are completely awake. A version of this is when someone we're really close to, we're just going along about our day and we go, oh, I wonder how mom is doing. And we call them up, and something has gone terribly wrong. So this time and space are quite porous. We make them rigid. In the conditioned side of the circle, our mind is making it all quite solid. But in the absolute, there is no time or space, no cause, no effect, no name and no form. So all bets are off. It's what we call freedom I. The hazard is to get attached to the special energy. You will have gurus and teachers who will cultivate this point, develop an enormous amount of charisma, be able to read people's minds, be able to know some of the future, be able to see people's lives, and then they use that to make a lot of money and buy fancy cars and have a bigger carbon footprint. So that's the pitfall of attaching to the special energy. Also, another pitfall is thinking, I'm not such a good meditator because I don't have any of these psychedelic experiences. That's attaching to the idea of 270. So don't do that. We come around to Truth World 360, which is exactly where we started. In Truth World, Seung Sahn calls this original enlightenment. That's kind of interesting to me. At 180, he goes first enlightenment. And at 360, he calls it original enlightenment. So this is your original nature. As you came alive as a human being, you had this. You have this as a child, and it's never gone. And what our practice is discovering, the sky is blue, trees are green, the carpet is green, the cushion is gray. Just what we see, what we hear, taste, touch, smell, and think is the truth. We are living in a truth world all the time. The practice is observing it, trusting it, and then moment world. Moment world appears because we experience time. We create time, that's one kind of time. But if we're not making the idea of time, our experience is still in time. So when the bullet hits my shoulder, moment before, no problem. Moment of, big problem. Moment after, now what? Now what? Now what? How do I solve it? How do I solve it? How do I fix? Yeah? So moment by moment, everything can change in this conditioned world, but it's always a truth. So at 360, all these conditions and this absolute completely interpenetrate. It's very simple, but it's hard to trust. Our absolute nature is always participating in the conditioned world. And then we have a relationship to that and a function. If my thinking is attached thinking, I can't see my situation clearly, my relationship, or my function. Then I'm causing suffering, and the world is causing me suffering, and I'm causing the world to suffer. But if I put down I, my, me, my idea, my opinion, my situation, and become clear, then I see, this is the situation I'm in. This is what's actually going on. Then our function springs, wisdom and compassion just appears by itself. The bodhisattva, the Buddha, the person who's awake for that moment is not thinking their way to doing the right thing. They are just doing the right thing. We see children do this all the time because they just trust themselves. Children who are in relatively safe conditions, and who are healthy and fairly stable, they'll just respond correctly. They'll help. They'll share. They'll laugh. And we will also be doing that even when we don't know it. So moment world, Seung Sahn always called final enlightenment. That means this is something we return to again. Then we have to return to it again. What's the situation I'm in? Now it's changed. What am I in now? Now it's changed. So the conditions that we're in are creating the person that's participating. And when the conditions change, then the person changes. So there's this river of change, the conditioned truth. We think of it as outside of ourselves, but there's also this river of change inside. How I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what my body's doing, breathing, etc. And where those two meet is reality. We can participate harmoniously with all the form that's changing. So I arrive at a door and I push, and it's not a push door. And I think this is a push door, and I push again, and the door doesn't open, and I think this is a push door. Now either the door is going to break or my hand's going to break or get bruised. It's a pull door. It's pulled. Just pull, and it's a harmonious relationship with form. Changing, 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 changing. It can be scary to realize how much everything changes, especially when we experience feelings, aspirations, goals. We strategize our lives. We plan buying a house. We fall in love with somebody. We want to build a life. We have children. We take on obligations. Then it's terrifying to think all of this can change in a heartbeat. And we have no control over that. And we might take measures to control it. And to some degree, that's a reasonable, mature thing to do. Of course. The Buddha's not suggesting we don't do that. However, if we lose sight that things can change, we start to have a false sense that the world is fixed. And it might be fixed by our ideas. It might be fixed by our feelings. It might be fixed by our wanting, holding, making, checking minds. And then we suffer. And we actually no longer live our actual life. We're in a dream. This is the dream the Buddha's always describing. That human beings create a dream out of their heart minds, and they simply have to wake up.